Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days. For today's video, that takes us to around the 28th of July, so heading towards the end of the month with the week to 10 day video updates. We'll also have a look at the ECM ensembles and the extended GFS, which runs around a couple of weeks, so that gets us into the early part of August. And of course, I have the beige climate centre as well today, so that's going to take us to the end of August, so quite an extended look ahead. But all eyes are going to be on next week's weather. I think that's going to be the main story within the models and within the videos over the next few days. So there's a chance it could get very hot for a time through the course of next week, especially around the middle of next week. Could see temperatures going well into the 30s Celsius, but at the same time, it looks like quite a classic Spanish bloom, and it might spark off some big thunder. We've been waiting for the chance of thunderstorms, and next week could be the week. So I'll talk you through all of the developments. It's very interesting. I'll talk you through all of the developments very shortly. We're going to start off though by having a look at the NAO, because that's on the move. So this is the North Atlantic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart. The black line shows where we've been with the NAO. The red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. Maybe it's just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. It's not driving anything. It just tells us what the atmosphere is doing. This is looking at the North Atlantic. So it's measuring the air pressures really between Iceland and the Azores, and when the NAO is in its positive phase, then you'll have low pressure around Iceland and high pressure around the Azores. When the NAO is in its negative phase, it's the reverse, so you tend to get high pressure towards Iceland and Greenland, and you tend to get low pressure through the Azores. Now, we've been through a prolonged spell of negativity of the NAO since, really since the sort of last week or so of April. The whole of May was negative with the NAO, and the whole of June was negative with the NAO as well. It had 2 months of solid negativity of the NAO. That's carried on into the first half of July as well. This is where we are right now, into the second half of the month, of course. We are still negative with the NAO, and GFS ensembles are forecasting we will stay negative for the next few days as well. However, you will notice now we are seeing a rapid increase in the North Atlantic Oscillation in terms of the forecast from the GFS ensembles for around a week or so's time, going much more positive. First time we've been positive with the NAO since around the 3rd week of April back here. So quite a fundamental shift in the pattern is taking place as we go into the sort of last week or so of July. Now, a positive NAO in the summer can do 2 things. It may give us rather cool westerly winds if we see low pressure quite deep around Iceland, then it could be a little bit unsettled and we could have quite cool westerly winds. The alternative, though, it's not necessarily an unsettled signal positive NAO in the summer, because the alternative is that the Azores high will strengthen to such a degree that although the flow across the Atlantic is westerly, the jet stream will be pushed northwards, and the Azores high will just ridge in to the western north of Europe. If that happens, then we could set up quite a prolonged, dry, very warm spell of weather as we go in towards August. So a positive NAO in the summer can mean 2 things, really. The flow will generally be westerly, but it just depends how strong the reach from the Azores high is. But certainly quite a significant and fundamental shift in the NAO. Looks like it's going to take place now before the end of July, so through the final week to 10 days of the month. At the same time, it looks like the AO is beginning to shift a little bit as well. So this is the Arctic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart. Again, the black line shows where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. Red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. As with the NAO, we have also been in quite a prolonged negative phase of the AO, although we have had a few days here and there where we've been positive with the Arctic Oscillation, but generally we've been on the negative side with the AO as well. Again, this is measuring air pressure in the Arctic, not driving anything, just tells us what the air pressures are doing. So when the AO is negative, you're going to have high pressure blocking up over the North Pole. Where we are right now is, well, we're neutral to negative. We're not particularly negative with the AO, but we are on the negative side of neutral. GFS Ensemble's forecasting we stay there for around the next week. But as we go through towards the final week to 10 days of July, we again possibly see signs that the AO is moving into a slightly more positive phase. So it's kind of like going from neutral to negative to neutral to positive. So not as much of a shift with the Arctic Oscillation for the final week or so of July as we see with the NAO, but nevertheless it looks like both indexes are on the move, and this is telling us that quite a significant pattern change could be taking place in the overall circulation in the Northern Hemisphere. This is the 500 millibar high gummy flow chart from the Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. Looks very basic. Things aren't right at Penn State University with their data at the moment, but we have got the E7WF here on the top. We don't have the GFS on the bottom, as we get most days now, unfortunately. The GFS is missing. I'm not sure what's gone wrong at the Penn State University with these anomaly charts, but let's hope they get it resolved soon. We can see, though, that with the E7WF, it's placing this ridge of above average heights to our east-northeast with a trough of below average heights to our west-southwest. This will be drawing up hot southerly southeasterly winds, but at the same time it would also be very unstable with this low pressure looking pretty thundery, and as I said at the start of the video, we could be in some classic thundery weather with hot temperatures next week. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Looking at London here, and you can see what's going on. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average, starting off quite close to average at the moment. We're going to stay pretty close to average into weekend, but through next week the temperatures are lifting up, taking off, and the peak looks like it's going to be around the middle of next week around here, where we have got a lot of ensemble members now getting to 20 degrees at 850 HPA. That is hot. That's hot upper air temperatures. It's enough probably to be lifting temperatures on the surface in southern England to around the mid-30s Celsius. So that's going into the mid-90s Fahrenheit. As going to the final sort of days of July and the first days of August, it does look as though temperatures then start to slide a little bit. Takes a while though, so it's not going to be a dramatic cool down. It could take a few days to lower the temperature, but eventually by month's end and into the beginning of August, it does look as though we're going to something a little bit cooler and fresher. Precipitation-wise, well, we've got a nice dose of rain coming up later tomorrow and into Saturday, so that's going to be quite useful. Quite a bit of heavy rain, sort of later tomorrow into Saturday, and then once that gets out of the way, we're possibly seeing heavy showers through Saturday afternoon. So there will be some useful rain around these next couple of days. After that, pretty dry through the early part of next week, and of course at the same time getting hotter, and then possibly thundery breakdown through the second half of next week, middle to second half of next week. Could be some thunderstorms. This is how the latest GFS run is looking then. This is for Sunday, with low pressure out to the north and west. That could bring quite a bit of rain to northern and western parts of the country as there's a trailing weather front through there. But heights are rising to our south, high pressure building to our south, and starting to push up much hotter air from North Africa. We get through to Monday and Tuesday, and that ridge takes over the country and to our east. High pressure is building through many central parts of Europe and reaching northwards as well. Low pressure is out to the west, but winds are pushing up from the south. The origins of the air originating from way down south, kind of like North Africa. So obviously much hotter air will be pushing northwards through the early part of next week. There's the upper air temperature showing heat really building across France and down to Spain and Portugal, with the bubble of hot air originating from North Africa. So early next week, we're going to see temperatures on the rise, and the peak probably occurs on Wednesday, where we've got this area of high pressure again sitting to our east and northeast. That looks a little bit thundery, that area of low pressure there. So initially next week, storms could be in the north or west, with many southern east areas probably dry and very hot. Look at those upper air temperatures. They look really hot through the middle of next week. In the south and the southeast, we've got the 20 Celsius isotherm there across southern and southeast parts of the country. That could get us into the mid-30s Celsius. But then it turns increasingly unstable. Look at this, low pressure is developing from the south, covering many western parts of Europe. Upper air temperatures on Thursday are still hot, so there's a lot of energy available within the atmosphere as this low pressure begins to develop across the west of Europe, and that looks potentially classic thundery by Friday next week, Friday 26th of July. That's a proper thundery low that's come out of the Bay of Biscay and is moving northwards across France and into southern England. That could bring some classic thunderstorms with it through the latter part of next week. Eventually that low pressure moves out of the way over the final weekend of July. We take that low pressure out of the way, start to get a bit of ridging close to the country, so things settling down. As we get into more extended range, this particular GFS run wants to have high pressure taking over actually as we're moving towards the early part of August. Looks like we're mainly dry and potentially very warm still into the early part of August. But of course the focus is next week for both the heat and also thundery potential. These are the temperatures that the GFS 6 Scott run is forecasting for next week. So on Monday, already the heat is building in the east and the southeast. Maximum there in central London on Monday of around 28 degrees Celsius. Tuesday is a much hotter day though. Temperatures widely across England and Wales on Tuesday being forecast to be sort of 31, 32, so that's around 90 Fahrenheit. Central London is being forecast to be somewhere around 33 or 34 on Tuesday, so that's going to around 93 Fahrenheit. Very hot. And then the peak of the temperature in the southeast is on Wednesday, where it is actually going for a maximum temperature on Wednesday, this particular GFS run. It could be over top, but it's going for a maximum temperature of 36 degrees in central London on Wednesday. That is 97 Fahrenheit. The record for July's maximum temperature is 36 degrees. So it's getting very, very close to our all-time July maximum record there. If it was to go another degree higher to 37, which gets you close to 99 Fahrenheit, then that would be a July maximum temperature record. So it is getting very, very close to it. But at the same time, you'll notice temperatures aren't quite as hot through places like the Midlands. The reason for that is that it's becoming much more unstable. There's more cloud around and also the risk of thunderstorms. As we go into the second half next week, well, still very warm, still hot and humid in the southeast through Thursday and Friday. Temperatures upper 20s to low 30s. Not as hot as it is through the middle part of the week, though. And the reason for that is that more widely thunderstorms are breaking out, which of course when it's raining, that has a cooling effect on the atmosphere. So the peak of the temperature happens on Wednesday, Tuesday and Wednesday, very hot days, and then potentially a little bit cooler, although still very warm and humid, but also thundery through Thursday and Friday. That's just one run of one model though. Let's have a look at the GEM. So on Sunday, again, we've got low pressure out to the northwest, high pressure building to our south. That starts to drag up hotter air into the south through the early part of next week. This is Tuesday, for example. We've got a weather front still there out to the northwest. Could bring quite a lot of rain early next week to the north and west. But elsewhere, this high pressure strengthening across central parts of Europe and starting to pull up hotter air from the south as well. Into the middle part of next week, well, here comes that thundery low developing around Biscay. That's starting to push thunderstorms northwards into this melting melting pot of very, very hot and humid air. There's the upper air temperatures for Wednesday. Again, the GM looks really hot for England and Wales, 20 Celsius. Isotherm is pushing through England and Wales. When you get that, it will often get you into the mid-30s Celsius. So very hot through the middle part of next week down in the south, but also very volatile with low pressure developing close to the country. That looks like a classic Thundery scenario as we go from Wednesday through to Thursday. If you want thunderstorms, I don't think it gets much better than that. Low pressure is developing out to our west. We've got a very hot and unstable air mass over the country. 20 Celsius isotherm is there, and it just looks like a real classic Thundery episode, this, as we go into the second half of next week. We see those hot upper air temperatures beginning to get shunted away to our east as things turn cooler and fresher from the west with that trough of low pressure. By day 10, Sunday 28th of July, temperatures are much more comfortable. ECM looking like that again. We've got this reef strengthening to our south through the early part of next week, ridging into central northern parts of Europe. Low pressure is out to west. Hot air is being sucked up from the south. That's Wednesday. So again, looking hot. High pressure is through central northern parts of Europe. Low pressure's out to west. All looks very unstable, very volatile, and hot as well. We've got 20 Celsius isotherm there in the south and the southeast once again. So there's certainly enough energy available within the atmosphere to fuel thunderstorms if all the conditions come together. The Thundery breakdown is well and truly on by Thursday. The hottest of the air is being shunted away to our east from Wednesday to Thursday, and then we go more unsettled and cooler in the extended range with the ECM. That's how we look at day 10. Low pressure is over the top of the country, bringing showers or longer spells of rain, and look how much cooler the upper air temperatures are by day 10. So does cool down eventually by day 10, but before we get to that, we have some very hot and potentially very thundery weather to go through. These are the scenarios for 144 hours around the 24th of July. This is kind of like peak of the temperatures. So from the, and this is from the Icelandic Met Office as well, have 21 members of the ECM ensembles with above average height sitting to our east. Below average heights are out to the west, and with that we'll be bringing up these hot southerly winds. 16 members of the ECM ensembles again with the above average heights to our east. Slightly deeper area below average heights to the west. And again, we're bringing up those hot southerlies. That does include the operational and control run. 14 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure, kind of right over top of the country. So that would still be pretty warm, maybe even hot, but it would be a slightly drier scenario. Not as much of a trough in the Atlantic to provide the energy for that thunder, for those thundery developments. These are these scenarios for day 10, which is the 28th of July. 16 members of the ECM ensembles with below average heights coming in from off the Atlantic. That's a breakdown, a thundery breakdown is taking place by this point, and it's cooler and fresher but more unsettled. 12 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure up towards Scandinavia. Low pressure down to our south, so that looks quite an unsettled scenario as well. That includes the operational and control run. 9 with above average heights to our south. They're bringing up winds from the southwest. 8 with high pressure over the top of the country, so that's the driest option. And 6 with a blocking feature up to our north and low pressure down to our south. That's a relatively cool and unsettled scenario for day 10. Looks as though we will see a breakdown to that hot weather through the early and middle part of next week. By the time we get to day 10, it should be quite a bit cooler and potentially rather unsettled. And then finally, in 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. It takes us to the start of August. This is second day of August. 17 members of the ECM ensembles with below average heights, I should say, to our north. They're bringing cooler, fresher northwesterly winds. 16 with a weak trough over the top of the country, quite unsettled with those. 12 with low pressure to the north and high pressure to the south, that's relatively unsettled again. And 6 with low pressure below average heights just to our south and southwest, again quite unsettled. So slight differences in the scenarios, but certainly by the early part of August it does look like we're into something rather cooler and more unsettled. Let's just see what Beijing Climate Centre has to say about that finally. So these are 500 millibar heights, broken down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period takes from the 21st to the 30th of July, coming 10 days with above average heights, very close to the country, lots of high pressure, very, very close, both to our east and also to our northwest too. Temperatures will be getting hotter through that 10-day period. The next 10-day period is the 31st of July to the 9th of August, above average heights to our north, below average heights to our south. That looks rather easterly, potentially. So that could be quite a warm first 10 days of August, actually, with low pressure to the south. That might provide energy for thunderstorms. So Beijing Climate Centre looks like it could be sort of flirting anyway with the idea of something rather hotter continuing into early August. We shall have to see about that. The next 10-day period is a 10th to the 19th of August, with below average heights to our west-southwest, above average heights up to our northeast. So it's a proper Scandinavian high in, which is trying to feed in potentially hot easterly winds, but with low pressure out to west-southwest, bit of a battle. That might be quite hot though again, and potentially quite volatile. So the issue with that could be big thunderstorms maybe before the Atlantic finally starts to push through. And then a bit of a change as we get through to the final 10-day period. This is this day's 31 to 40. It's a very long way out. It's the 20th to the 29th of August. Mid-Atlantic ridge starts getting going then, with below average heights sort of over the country and also to our north. That just generally looks quite a lot more unsettled, but potentially also quite a bit cooler as well. So the second half of August, perhaps even a tad autumnal, but I don't really want to say that. But certainly the second half of August does go cooler and more unsettled with Beijing Climate Centre. But the first half, interestingly, of August is looking pretty warm there, I have to say, but also potentially quite volatile. However, that's all speculative. I think the focus has to be on next week's weather. We could see, well, the first things, that could be some very hot temperatures through the early and middle part of next week. Peak of the temperature could be in the mid-30s Celsius through the middle part of next week. If it happens, it's getting us close to our maximum July temperature record. And then we go through to the second half next week, where the threat of heat will fade a little bit. It will, the worst of the heat will sort of fade, but then the emphasis shifts towards thunderstorms. We've been waiting a very long time for a classic sort of Spanish plume and thundery breakdown scenario, but this might be it. So a really, really interesting week potentially on the way next week. And of course, we're going to keep you updated on all of the developments over the next few days at Gazovers. But heat and thunder could be the story for next week. Right, tomorrow we have JMA Friday, and of course we'll also have a week 10-day video update, bringing you up to date on all of the heat and thunder developments for next week, and those videos will be up tomorrow. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.